Hello and welcome to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today I'm going to be talking about consequences for actions.
So the big question is this: how are parents like us, who don't have a manual, who are doing the best we can, who feel as though we aren't enough, how are we going to raise healthy, happy children who we are proud of and still keep our sanity in that process? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Ryan Roy, and welcome to I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, a podcast for parents who are being real with themselves.
Hey, welcome back to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today we're going to be talking about consequences for actions. So I'll share with you that the impetus for this particular episode is I was in a group of guys and we were talking, and it came out that one of the guys in the group is having some challenges with his kids, and he says, and unfortunately he's in a scenario, and some of you may be in this scenario where the house is divided, right? There was a divorce. The wife has custody. The wife is going through some sort of midlife crisis. And because of that crisis, in his opinion and his description, and that's all I have, is she's just not really being a really good mom. Now, part of the reason for the divorce is because he was a workaholic and wasn't around much. So he doesn't have a lot of clout when it comes to the kids. They don't have a lot of respect. Mom doesn't have a lot of respect for him. So when he is around and now he's trying to pour into his kids, he needs to rebuild that relationship and doesn't necessarily know how to do that. But here's the thing. I said this is about consequences. But consequences for actions or punishments or having a place of authority all starts with creating boundaries. So as he was asking us as a group, what we thought he should or could do, my immediate thought is there's nothing you need to do now. There's no knee-jerk reaction to the kids like, hey, I'm your father, you should listen to me. That doesn't fly with kids. It's, here are the boundaries in a calm scenario. And if you push or exceed those boundaries, this is what's going to happen over here. Are we clear about that? And the kids say yes. And there's kind of a process. You could say, can you tell me what I just said so that I know that it's clear for you? And the kids repeat. You say, great. Now that I know that you know there's an understanding, just know that if you break those rules, these are the consequences. So I'll give you a small example of that when my son was about 6. And he was trying to test boundaries, as all kids do. That's what kids are supposed to do. Test boundaries every day now. But I remember we had just gotten a new sofa, and my wife, in all her wonderment, was wondering why he would want to bounce and jump on our brand new sofa. So number one, you got to understand he's a kid and he's a boy, and boys have energy. And one of the things boys do is test these energies. And one of the things they do to test these energies is jump on couches. That's what boys do. And there's a great book out there. I can't think of it right now, but it's basically raising boys and understanding their energy levels and that, we need to embrace it and allow it, not try to stop boys, because it's already bad enough our school system makes boys sit in a desk in order to learn, when we have all this, for lack of a better term, nervous energy, where we need to move and our bodies need to move in order for us to. We're physical beings, so to sit in a desk isn't the best learning environment for us. So anyway, he's bouncing on the couches. And I say to him, I said, listen, after asking him not to do so, I said, here's the deal. I know you don't mean to do it, but there's plenty of other things you could do to get the energy out. And what I would appreciate is if you don't jump on the new couches. And he goes, well, Dad, I can't, I forget. And I said, look, I get it. So the only way we learn in this life is through two things. We either learn through pain or we learn through pleasure. And so I think we should create a consequence if you forget. So what do you want your consequences to be? This is my own little tool, by the way. I never read this anywhere. It just makes sense to me. I let him pick his own consequences. And he says, no dessert for 5 days. There's no way I would have done that. And realized that they picked the worst consequences for themselves. And I said, okay, or what? Or what else? Give me another option. Because I want you to be able to pick your own consequence when it happens in the moment. He goes, I get a 10-minute timeout. Okay, I can deal with a 10-minute timeout. Now, what you need to understand about my son is he doesn't like doing things or letting us down as parents. Like, it bothers him. So about a week later, he's bouncing on the couch. And I just look at him and he smiles. And I said, pick your consequence, buddy. And the look of terror comes over his face. And he sits down. And I said, what were your options? He's like, 10-minute timeout or no dessert for a week. Okay. Which one do you want? I'll take the 10-minute timeout. So I put him in timeout, pretty much a corner in a room that we don't utilize that often. And I said, just stay there and think about what you did. And at the 8-minute mark, my wife is like, hey, come here. And I was like, what are you doing? She goes, what? I go, he's in timeout. And he came over to her. I said, no. No. Go back. You got 2 minutes left. So he goes back and proceeds to break down, like crying uncontrollably. And he can't gather himself. And I let him have his cry until the time's up. And then I said, what's going on? I don't like timeout, Daddy. I said, look, I don't like putting you in timeout, but you chose the consequence. I go, and I'm glad you chose one that bothered you, because it means that it was an effective one. So know that I love you. Hopefully you'll make better choices, and we don't have to do that anymore, okay? But Daddy's not upset with you. It's just sometimes we need to enforce some rules. It's a very simple lesson to learn at 6. I'll tell you this. He hasn't jumped on the couch much since. He's 7.5. If he is doing it, I just kind of look at him and I was like, are we supposed to be doing that? No. Same thing happened one night when he was misbehaving, and I said, if you don't do what you're supposed to do tonight, or if he didn't do what he was supposed to do, he got in trouble, and then he started testing boundaries, and he didn't want to eat his dinner. I said, if you don't start eating your dinner, he was pouting. I go, I'm giving you 30 minutes, and he was about 4 at this time. When the clock, and he understood clocks, when the hand gets there, if you have not eaten your dinner or started eating your dinner, Daddy's going to throw it out and you could go directly to bed. His bedtime's 8:30 at the time. It was, 6, and I was giving him the 6:30. At 6:30, and I warned him every 5 minutes. At 6:30, I just picked his plate up and I threw it in the garbage. And he's like, no, I'm hungry. I said, you had choice. You failed to take the choice. It's time to go to bed. But Dad, I'm hungry. I said, you will not die. You'll be okay. You will be hungry. But I guarantee you'll eat dinner tomorrow night. See, was it fun for me? Was my wife almost hysterical? How can you send them to bed hungry? But listen, there's consequences for actions. Here's the problem. In your house, if you're not enforcing the consequences that you put in place with your boundaries, you will suffer greatly long term. Not only will you suffer greatly long term, your children will suffer greatly long term. See, I don't know jack about parenting, but I know that if rules are not enforced, there is no respect for the rules. And if there's no respect for the rules, it's really hard for there to be structure in this chaotic world. We'll see you in the next episode.
Do you want to be the dad you wish you had? If so, go get my free book, Be the Dad You Wish You Had, at BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com. Inside, you'll find my most effective 40 tips to quickly and easily transform yourself into the ideal dad. Go to BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com now and get it while it's free.